Imagine if the Ravens had an owner who made wild decisions, traded away the team's biggest stars, and then talked about them like they were nothing. Crazy, right? Well, that doesn't really happen in Baltimore. But in Dallas, that's pretty much the norm. Jerry Jones just made one of the biggest mistakes in the NFL, and that's exactly why Ravens fans should be thankful every single day that he's not running their team. What happened with Micah Parsons was so ridiculous it feels like something out of a video game. Instead of paying his best defensive player, the Cowboys decided to ship him off in a trade, and the result was a complete disaster. This story highlights the massive difference between how Dallas and Baltimore are run. And once you hear the details, you'll realize just how lucky the Ravens are to be in good hands. Think about it. You've got one of the best defensive players in the NFL, a guy who completely changes the way offenses game plan against you. That's Micah Parsons. On any well-run franchise, he would have been treated like an absolute priority. But Jerry Jones, the Cowboys owner and GM, did the exact opposite. He dragged out negotiations, let things sour, and eventually traded Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. And what happened the second Parsons arrived in Green Bay? The Packers didn't hesitate. They handed him a 4-year, $188 million deal with $136 million guaranteed. The money was always there. All it took was a team that actually respected his value. The Packers showed that respect. Jones gambled, and in the end, he lost his most valuable defender. It's like having a diamond in your hand and tossing away because you don't want to spend money polishing it. Sure, Dallas got 2 first-round picks and a solid defensive tackle in Kenny Clark. But let's be real, guys like Parsons don't come around in every draft. The impact he makes, the fear he puts in quarterbacks, that's priceless. And the worst part isn't even the trade itself. It's the message it sends to the rest of the locker room. If the star of the defense can be treated like that, why should anyone else believe they'll be valued? Moves like this crush locker room trust and make players question the leadership of the entire franchise. This is just the first example of how Jerry Jones can take something simple and turn it into a full-blown disaster. But when you stack that up against the way the Ravens handle their talent, the difference becomes crystal clear, which brings us to the next point. While Jerry Jones makes decisions that feel driven more by ego than logic, the Ravens operate with a completely different philosophy. Owner Steve Bisciotti and GM Eric DeCosta share a long-term vision. They don't let pride or stubbornness get in the way of what really matters. Keeping elite players in the building and giving the team stability. The contrast is glaring. In Dallas, decisions swing depending on Jones's mood. One day, Parsons is a cornerstone of the defense. The next, he's being shipped off to Green Bay. In Baltimore, every move runs through careful planning and mutual respect. It's not just about talent. It's about building an environment where players know they're valued. That consistency is exactly why the Ravens are one of the most stable franchises in the NFL. You never see Baltimore panicking or making impulsive choices. When issues come up, they analyze, they talk, they find a solution that works for everyone. That mindset creates trust, not just with players, but with the fans too. And that comparison makes Baltimore's reality feel even brighter. While the Cowboys are constantly putting out fires created by their own owner, the Ravens stay steady. Nothing shows this more clearly than how they handled Lamar Jackson's contract negotiations, a perfect setup for our next point. If there was ever a negotiation that tested Ravens fans' patience, it was Lamar Jackson's. Months of speculation, rumors, and uncertainty kept everyone on edge. But even with all that pressure, the relationship never hit a breaking point. Lamar wanted to be valued, and in the end, Bisciotti and DeCosta stayed patient and got a deal done that worked for both sides. The difference compared to Parsons is massive. In Dallas, the situation dragged until Parsons finally asked out. In Baltimore, the process was long, but the door was always open for dialogue. Yes, there were tense moments, but never disrespect. And that detail makes all the difference in the bond between a franchise and its star. Lamar's contract is a blueprint of how the Ravens treat their top talent, with patience, planning, and above all, respect. The result? One of the richest deals in the league, but also a quarterback who feels appreciated and a franchise set up for the future. It was the perfect balance of money and stability. If Jerry Jones had followed that model, Parsons would still be a Cowboy right now. Instead, Dallas has a gaping hole in its defense and a locker room that just watched a generational player walk out the door. And that kind of broken trust? That's exactly what the Ravens have mastered protecting, which leads us to the next point. When a team loses its biggest star because the owner botched negotiations, the impact isn't just on the field, it's emotional. In Dallas, Parsons' exit didn't just weaken the defense, it shook the locker room. Because if a generational player can be tossed aside like that, who's safe? That kind of uncertainty eats away at a team's culture. Players start questioning if it's worth giving their all for a franchise that might treat them like disposable parts. It's a quiet, creeping effect, but it tears down trust and unity from the inside. Baltimore, on the other hand, creates the exact opposite atmosphere. Even when negotiations drag on, players know management will find a way to get it right. That sense of security builds a healthy locker room, where athletes feel like part of a long-term plan. That's why so many stars actually want to stay with the Ravens. This is the difference between leadership that builds stability and leadership that fuels chaos. And while the Cowboys keep finding ways to stay competitive despite the drama, there's always a ceiling hanging over them. In Baltimore, that ceiling doesn't exist, and that's exactly why the Ravens stay contenders year after year. Which brings us to the next truth about Dallas.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
On paper, the Cowboys look competitive. They make the playoffs. They post winning seasons. They've got the talent to scare anyone. But here's the truth. There's a ceiling created by Jerry Jones's decisions. It's like no matter how good the roster looks, they can't take that final step because the problems always start at the top. This fake competitiveness leaves fans stuck in a cycle of frustration. They see the talent, they see the potential, but deep down, they know one reckless move from Jones can derail everything. Parsons was just the latest example, and it wouldn't shock anyone if another star got pushed out the same way. The Ravens don't have that problem. They don't live in constant highs and lows caused by front office mistakes. Even in tough years, there's always a clear plan, a strong identity, and a sense of stability that keeps them respected across the league. And if Jones's mistakes on the field weren't bad enough, what he said in front of cameras after the Parsons trade made things even worse. That press conference, it turned into a full-blown embarrassment. The trade alone was hard enough for Cowboys fans to swallow. But when Jerry Jones stood in front of the media to explain it, things went from bad to worse. His tone was cold, dismissive, almost like Parsons was just a name on paper, not the heart of the defense. For fans and players alike, it felt like a slap in the face. That kind of attitude only fueled the outrage. It wasn't just about losing a star. It was about an owner who seemed totally out of touch with how damaging the decision really was. That press conference didn't calm the storm. It poured gasoline on it. Compare that to Baltimore. Even in the toughest moments, like Lamar Jackson's contract standoff, the Ravens' leadership handled the media with care and respect. They communicated clearly. They never disrespected their star, and they always kept the bigger picture in mind. That's the mark of a franchise that understands relationships matter. Once again, the gap between Dallas and Baltimore couldn't be clearer. And if it wasn't obvious already, the final point drives it home. Ravens fans should be grateful every single day for the way their team is run. At the end of the day, the Micah Parsons saga is a warning. It shows what happens when ego gets in the way of respect for players. If the Ravens had an owner like Jerry Jones, stars like Lamar Jackson, Roquan Smith, or Mark Andrews might already be gone. But in Baltimore, that's not the reality. With Bisciotti and DeCosta, the priority has always been protecting homegrown talent. That builds stability, trust, and a strong future. It's not just about contract numbers. It's about how players are treated and the kind of culture built inside the locker room. That's why the Ravens stay competitive year after year. Even in tougher seasons, there's a foundation of mutual respect that keeps players committed and fans confident. Meanwhile, in Dallas, that respect feels further and further away. While Cowboys fans are stuck riding out another storm caused by their owner, Baltimore keeps moving forward with a united team and a clear vision. And honestly, that kind of stability is priceless. After watching all the chaos in Dallas, it's impossible not to appreciate what the Ravens have in Baltimore. While Jerry Jones keeps turning the Cowboys into an unstable mess, Steve Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta have built a rock-solid foundation, one that respects its stars and ensures guys like Lamar Jackson never have to leave through the back door. That's the difference between a franchise stuck in turmoil and one building for the future. So let me ask you this. Can you even imagine what the Ravens would look like if Jerry Jones was in charge? The truth is, Baltimore is steady, stable, and competitive because they know how to treat their players and keep the locker room united. And that's exactly why Ravens fans can feel confident this team will always be fighting at the top.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself. See you there, and until the next video, go Flock.